Hello, Palladium fans. We are back here again, and today we're talking about alignment. Now, alignment in non-Palladium circles is usually a pretty hot topic. Are we using three-axis alignment like Michael Moorcock in the original Dungeons and Dragons? Are we using 9-point alignment? Should we throw alignment out altogether? Now, Kevin, you have alignment, but you made changes to them. And because Palladium is such a narrative focused game, I feel like alignment works really well in the Palladium system. And I wanted to sit down and talk about why did you make these changes? How did they work in your games? Because I've never had the alignment discussion in Palladium circles that I've had in D&D circles. And in fact, especially online, usually when the alignment discussion starts coming up, someone's like, you guys should try the Palladium alignment system. Sometimes that guy's me. So let's talk about it. Like, when was the first time that when did you create the Palladium alignment system?
Well, it was one of the very first things that I created. As we've established, I started running a D&D game, and I understand why people aren't real thrilled with alignments, because I wasn't real thrilled with the D&D alignments. And plus there was always the crazy debate of, well, I want to be neutral, because everyone wants to be neutral. And I'm like, there's no such thing as neutral. Sure, Switzerland is neutral. And I'm like, no, not really.
Not really.
It's, and so I would have these arguments about, chaotic this and lawful that and neutral, and like, look, you can't be neutral. You always walk in with some kind of bias.
Yeah.
Plus, to me, and a lot of alignment systems don't really come across this way. To me, alignments are basically the character's moral code. This is how they think and function. Like, we all have our own little moral codes, and we all have the lines that we won't cross, the things that we will do and won't do. And I really just started, and I was kind of interested in human psychology, and I had read a couple of psychology books, and sociology books. In creating this, we do so much research when we do these games. It's crazy what we read and consider.
Having been in your office and perused your reference library, I can attest to this fact.
Yeah, and that doesn't even count the palette of books that's from my old office when we moved and I didn't have space for. So I really liked the idea of alignments. To me, they're essential. And whether you call them alignments or your moral codes or vices and virtues, that's basically what they are. And to me, if the way I've designed my alignments is, if you know the character's alignment, and we've talked about how I'm big into improvisation. As long as I know what the character's occupation is, skills, and alignment, I know how that character is going to react in any given situation.
Yeah.
So, we've got a couple categories of good. We have a couple categories of what I call selfish, of which unprincipled's in there. And then, for me, I'm thinking like comic book and movie characters.
Yeah.
So principled good is Superman. This guy's a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
He's going to do things by the book. He's not going to bend stuff. Scrupulous good, that's Batman. He's going to skirt the edges. I mean, he's truly a good guy.
Yeah.
But he's got his own kind of moral code, and he'll bend the law. Obviously, he's a vigilante.
Mm-hmm.
Then unprincipled, in my mind, this was Han Solo. The guy who he's always looking to, make out the best for himself. Mm-hmm. And he wants to be selfish. He wants to be sort of that dark guy. But when push comes to shove, darn it, I got to do the right thing.
He shows up and helps you blow up the Death Star.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he could die, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
And yet there he is, this guy who claims he's, I'm only out for myself. I'm only in it for the treasure, for the money, for the credits. No, he isn't. He wants to. That's in his mind. It's like, yeah, but, I ultimately am a good guy. And then you do have the anarchist, which is your selfish character who's out for himself. Those will be thieves and that kind of thing. And then I've got like 3 different levels of evil. So one of the alignments that people really went crazy for, especially back in the day, but even today, I still get people going, I love aberrant evil.
I have an aberrant evil character in my Palladium fantasy game.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's super cool because I was tired of, so I have miscreant evil, which is basically your selfish evil guy.
Yeah.
The guy who is truly out for himself, and you get in his way, he's going to beat the shit out of you. Doesn't care if you're a kid or a pregnant mom or a nun or a cripple. Get out of my way and give me what I want.
Everyone's a mark. A mark is born every minute, and you're mine. So.
Right. And then you have Diabolic, and that kind of says it all. This is your Fu Manchu,
Green Goblin,
the Emperor from Star Wars. Your truly evil guy. This guy is just out for himself or out for power. He doesn't care who he hurts. He'll blow up worlds, kill millions, trillions, wipe out entire races. Genocide. Is there a problem with that?
Yeah.
That's diabolic evil. And so we understand diabolic evil because we've seen it a million times in books and movies and comic books. And we understand miscreant evil because that's just, the selfish SOB who's out for himself and doesn't care who he hurts. But what about the characters, the evil guys? They do dark things and maybe they're ultimately out for themselves, but not necessarily. And because they have their own twisted moral code, whether it's a code of honor or whatever. And so that's a great example where my alignments, I outline the things you do. So you have aberrant evil. You have a little description of it. And it opens up with the cliche that there is no honor among thieves is false when you're dealing with the aberrant character. This is a person who is driven to attain his goals through force, power, and intimidation. Yet the aberrant character stands apart from the norm with his own personal code of ethics, although twisted ethics by the standard of good. Yeah. He expects loyalty from his minions, punishing disloyalty and treachery with a swift, merciful death. An aberrant character will always keep his word of honor and uphold any bargain. Because it's his word of honor. He's got this code. He will define his terms and live by them, whether anyone else likes it or not.
So in my mind, when I read that first, the things that came to my mind were, I just lost one of them, but like Doctor Doom, right? Doctor Doom, there's another Marvel villain. Magneto. Right, depending on where in the more often than not, Magneto is an aberrant character to the point that he takes over the X-Men and does his best to govern them as oversee them as best as his friend Charles asks, but he's still Magneto, right? He's still the villain from the point of view of the X-Men, but he's going to follow his code. Some of my friends would often point to Punisher, right? Another character.
Yes.
We're looking at Punisher. He's clearly got a code of honor in his own head. In his own head, it makes sense. Yeah.
No, that's exactly right. Magneto and Punisher are definitely aberrant characters. So each alignment, whatever it is then followed by 11 points of what this character would do. So it says aberrant characters will, 1, always keep his word of honor. He is honorable. 2, lie to and cheat to those not worthy of his respect. And that includes, by the way, diabolic and
Miscreant.
miscreant and
Yeah.
anarchist characters. But it might also be, an arrogant, good character. You never know what is going to, this guy's going to sit back and go, I don't like this guy, so I'll lie to his face. I don't care. May or may not kill an unarmed foe, depending on the circumstance. Not kill may harm and kidnap an innocent, particularly a child. Never kills for pleasure. Will not resort to inhumane treatment of prisoners, but torture, although distasteful, is a necessary means of extracting information. He'll never torture for pleasure, however. He may or may not help someone in need. Again, if it strikes him that this person is worthy of his help,
Yeah.
Or is an innocent in need and he has some level of compassion, he'll help them. He will work with others to attain his goals, and they may appear to be your goals as well. Respects honor and self-discipline, and will never betray a friend.
Yeah, again, going back, so I ran a 2.5-year Legend of the Five Rings game. And the main villain of that campaign was clearly aberrant evil. Right? Because the code of honor, societally in Legend of the Five Rings, which is, loosely based off of kind of Japanese samurai history, as well as most martial arts movies, kind of all just kind of stirred together in a pot. It makes sense that we would have this person who's like, my goal is to, kill the emperor because I think he's weak and take over. But I'm still bound by the same, I'm doing that because the emperor is weak. Therefore, the empire is weak. If he were strong, I wouldn't do this. And in his head, it makes sense. The players knew that guy's the bad guy, or he's going to be the bad guy. But as long as we treat him honorably, he'll deal honorably with us. He won't deal honorably with everyone, but as long as we, have his respect and show him respect, we see this alignment come up in, spy movies, martial arts movies, right? James Bond style movies. There is this code that this person follows, and I think it maps fairly well to lawful evil in the D&D 9-point alignment scale. But I have a question that I'm going to ask you that I don't know that we've covered at all in the show, and it just occurred to me, Kevin.
Yeah, what's that?
What version of D&D did you start the Defilers with? Because I know you mentioned that Julius's first session, or the first time he showed you D&D, it was the Little Brown Books, right?
Yep.
The Little Brown Books in the box. When you actually started, what version of D&D do you remember? Was it Advanced Dungeons and Dragons? Was it first edition, or was it still in the Little Brown Book era?
I think I actually started with the Little Brown Book, but I'm playing. I started running the Defilers in 1979.
Okay.
So if Advanced D&D was out or came out shortly thereafter, I quickly
incorporated
moved it to it, and because it was much more oriented for role playing and had more detailed stuff. And things. And bear in mind, I was poor, and Julius had access to a photocopier at work. So a lot of my early books were, and I probably shouldn't say this as a guy who really supports copyrights and trademarks, but Julius made photocopies for my personal use.
For personal use only.
Of these books. So I don't remember exactly what I had, but it had to be Advanced D&D that I really into, is my thought. And but yeah, so I mean, because they had lawful evil and that stuff. If that was
so that was 1E. Because I always heard the 3-point alignment system, in addition to coming from Elric, which I know we both love, it's kind of this idea that if you're lawful, you're supporting civilization, good or bad. You think civilization is a good thing. It's a very much Gibbon's, decline and fall of the Roman Empire. If you're neutral, it is a selfish alignment. You're like, I love everything that civilization gives me, but I don't want to do anything to help it. Why would I do that? I'm resting on my laurels. And chaos is, burn civilization down, reduce it all to ash, and we'll see what comes next. Which is kind of your three overarching categories. You have good and you have selfish.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I've never liked the idea of, right, I'm playing true neutral, so I'm just gonna, sit here, and if I save somebody today, I've gotta kill someone tomorrow who didn't deserve it, because that's not how people are. I love the selfish alignment because it feels very human.
Well, and my thought was, let's call them what they are.
Yeah.
Lawful evil, lawful good. That just those combination of words made no sense to me.
It doesn't make it. Yeah, it is cryptic, if you will. You have to understand the alignment system to really understand what those two components mean as they fit together.
And you can be lawful and pimp the system and be a complete weasel. So lawful good, lawful evil. They just did not compute in my brain. And so when I did these, I thought I want to have call it what it is. And I'm into a lot of heroic, fantasy and novels and science fiction and certainly comic books. And so it's like good guy, bad guy, in between guy. And I really liked those, so I went that direction. And again, I'm a big fan of human psychology and human behavior. Just from an observational point of view in real life. And I've known. I would actually say that in real life, I think more people are hurt through selfishness than actual outright evil. And there's a lot of arguments these days about, well, is there even really truly evil? It's just a matter of perspective, which is stupid, because you got to have some standards and some morality. And if your perspective is I'm an evil fuck and I like hurting people, that's evil. That's not I'm not such a bad guy if you look at it from my point of view. No, you're a creep. You're out to hurt people or control people or use people. That's freaking evil.
To be honest, Kevin, one, I kind of agree with that. Two, the first time I saw Empire, and he's like, you told me that Darth Vader killed my dad. He's like, well, I told you it was true from a certain point of view. I'm like, no, it's not. You're clearly lying to Luke. You mean a certain point of view? He's clearly his dad.
Because we can rationalize anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it true.
Oh, as humans, we have an incredible capacity for self-deception.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how early on did you introduce the alignment system? Did you introduce it during the Defilers campaign, or was this
absolutely
something?
Immediately? I loved it. I felt it was a core thing that it had to be in a role-playing game. Because we're talking about, for me, role-playing games, we've talked about this before, it's all about character and story.
Yeah.
And so to have a character, I need to know if he's good or bad. The player needs to know what his alignment is. What will he do? What won't he do? Yeah. And so that was like one of the very first things I tackled. I think even before attributes and some of the other game mechanics was I need to know this. And the player needs to know, how can he play his character if he doesn't know what his moral code is?
Well, and Palladium has always been... Palladium's not trying to simulate, mass combat or this, this medieval fantasy setting. It's not trying to simulate all of the different rules. It's trying to provide a vehicle for a cool narrative. And a lot of the rules are focused on that. And I think alignment going from cosmic allegiances to really, like you said, a moral code helps the player get into the role of, what would this person do, as you said, in this situation?
Exactly. And you mentioned cosmic allegiances. Again, if you know what your character's alignment is in Palladium, when you run across someone who, whether it's a alleged good guy or bad guy or an organization or a kingdom or whatever, based on your moral code, if you're willing to be part of that organization. For example, someone who's scrupulous or principled good is not going to join an assassin's guild. He just isn't, or a thieves guild, because that's wrong. You're not going to do it. Whereas an unprincipled Han Solo type character, he might not really like it much.
But that character, when confronted by becoming a Cosmo Knight, may go, "It's way too much responsibility for me. I don't want to like."
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And he'll be happy to hang with him and adventure with him and take advantage of him.
Yeah.
But he's not ever going to want to become a Cosmo Knight or a Cyber Knight or any kind of knight. That's not who he is. In fact, he probably has a certain, either will have a grudging respect for him or, a certain disdain for them, depending on how the character or the player wants to, really play it. And I want to point out, because we're throwing around aberrant characters, and I'm sure most people don't think of him as aberrant, evil, because he's the protagonist in the 4 movies that he's in. But John Wick, he's aberrant evil. He has his own code of ethics. He's striving to be a better person, to be a good person. But when they take away the thing that helped him, that connected him to good, which is his wife and arguably his dog, which was just an extension of his wife, because it's the last thing his wife gave him. This guy killed people for a living. This is what he does. He does it for money and profit. That's not a good person. So, and then when he's vengeful, he doesn't kill innocent people. He tries not to hurt innocent people.
Yeah.
But he slaughters like hundreds of people in each one of these frickin' movies.
Oh, yeah.
This is not a good guy. This is not a guy who's living by the law and or bending the law. He's just, aberrant evil.
Yeah. So there were a lot of rules back in the day about like what happens when your character changes alignment. So I thought I would ask you, how do you handle, like, as a GM, when you look at a player and go, hey, either I think your alignment is changing, or if you do this thing, your alignment's got to change, because you can't do X and remain scrupulous or principled or even aberrant or diabolic. How do you adjudicate that at your table?
Well, I try to use my judgment, and I will do a timeout, because my feeling is the player can do whatever he decides his character is going to do.
Player agency is supreme.
And there were occasions, in fact, Julius, who is like a real life paladin, there were a couple of moments where one of his characters or another was ready to kill some guy. And the guy deserved it. He did some heinous act, but he's either playing a principled or scrupulous good character. And I'm like, time out, Jules. Your character can kill this guy, and there's lots of reasons you want to kill him. We all know them. We've all played through it and seen it. You can do that. However, a character of your alignment would not kill this guy. You would want to take him in chains and turn him over to authorities to see that he gets his just punishment. And if you do kill him, you're going to go from, to me, again, they're talking something pretty grievous. So it's not like, you're going to drop one thing. So if you're principled, you're dropping to scrupulous, or maybe you're dropping to anarchist. No, you do something heinous. You burn down the village. You wipe out the orphanage. You do something terrible. You're killing people out of revenge and anger. I'm sorry, you're dropping to miscreant, because it's a selfish act. You're angry. You want revenge. I just kind of think it through quickly in my brain, and it's like, this is a selfish thing based on anger and revenge. So you're now miscreant evil if you do this.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's wrong for me to stop in there and bring this out, because I saw it sort of as, and I'm a big fan of Pinocchio, I'm stepping in to say, this is your conscience.
This is your Jiminy Cricket moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
you can go ahead and, join the carnival and turn into a donkey boy because there's consequences to your actions.
Yeah.
Or you can do the right thing.
Makes me think of Alan Moore's Killing Joke, right? The whole premise is the Joker is like anyone's one bad day away from becoming me. And, gets proven wrong. Spoiler alert, it's been out for decades. But that moment of, hey, listen, no, if you do this, this was your one bad day.
Yeah.
And now you're going to be, down this other path.
Well, and using the Joker as an example, and going of Star Wars analogies, that's the whole point. If you do that one thing, it's the beginning of...
The next thing becomes easier. The next thing becomes justified and rationalized.
Exactly. Because you took such a big step.
Yeah.
And conversely, I've had characters who did that one bad thing and then were so guilty about it, fought hard to get back up into higher alignment because it took a long time. It's not like, I did a good deed. I saved an orphan.
Helped an old lady cross the street.
Like, that's nice. But how did you go about that? Did you torture someone? Did you beat the shit out of them? How did you conduct yourself?
Yeah. And
it would take a long time. So I've had players and coincidentally NPCs go from good to evil and from evil to good. They had a demon. The group had this demon. This demon joined them, and he turns into an angel.
Awesome.
Because he's around the defilers, and there's such a good influence on him that he just starts doing good things and is there for them and all this stuff. And at some point, actually, it wasn't a demon. I'm sorry. It was a bugbear who was evil. This is like a miscreant evil character.
Yeah.
And he just starts doing nicer and nicer things. And he's like totally loyal. And one day, they asked me something about the character. I said, yeah, he goes walking by and he's like, how come we didn't hear him? I go, well, are you looking at him? They're like, yeah, we're looking at him. And I'm like, you realize when he walks, he's floating 6 inches above the ground. And he became an angel.
That's awesome.
They were associated with a demon who at first they were just kind of trying to manipulate, a summoner. Shifter in Rifts had summoned him, and this demon was kind of hanging out with the guys, and he too got nicer and nicer. He never became an angel or a saint, but he got much less demonic to the point where there were issues because he became an outcast.
Yeah.
I had players who just, and it's funny because a lot of people, so I think, and this is just a personal thing. I think, and this is no slam on anybody. I think human beings in general, and I've known a few what appear to be exceptions, but human beings in general tend to be selfish. That's just our nature. Our knee-jerk reaction is, ooh, I love this cake. And then when someone comes in and says, can I have a piece? A lot of people's knee-jerk reaction would be like, what? No, I haven't had this delicious favorite cake in a year. And then you think, but it's nice to share and they'll love it. And you're like, okay, mother, you go. You can have a piece of my damn cake. And we just tend to be self-serving. And that's why virtues are difficult and vices are not so difficult.
Or easy. Yeah.
Because it's tough to do the right thing. It's tough to be good. It's tough to be nice. It's tough to be kind. And like any muscle, I think the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Yeah.
So I've known some people who are like incredibly selfless. I'm not necessarily one of them, by the way. I would like to be, but I don't want you touching my favorite cake. I want to get once a year. You can have ice cream. You can have all this other stuff, but
Don't touch Kevin's cake is the moral of the story here.
Right. Poppy seed cake. Don't.
That's right. That's right.
So, so I think alignments are hugely valuable. It's essential to the character. It's as essential as the character's attributes, occupation, skills, special abilities.
Yeah.
Because it's fundamental to the core of the character. And I love the internal battles.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that was real life. To me, it was like, and I was a big early X-Men fan.
Yeah.
So I forget what the story was, but I remember some episode where Cyclops just wanted to kill. Maybe it was even Doctor Doom. I don't remember, or Doctor Magneto. I don't remember, but wanted to kill some adversary, and he doesn't. And he's like on the verge, and he just like, no, I can't do it. And you see that in lots of different representations of good and evil. And that's the thing too, is I approached my game back in the day, the term heroic adventure was thrown around a lot. And I really took that to heart. These are heroic adventures. These are, presumably you're playing heroes for the most part. And that's what you play. In fact, at one point I wanted to do sort of a gangland game where you're playing bad guys. And the more I dived into it, it's like, no, I don't want to be encouraging these despicable acts of cruelty and selfishness and wickedness. This is not, I don't want people playing this shit.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, thank you so much. This was a great insight into one of the core features of the Palladium games. And as always, I just enjoyed chatting with you about it.
Likewise.